All right, Greg, I love my first question. It is somewhat scripted, but your answer will give me plenty to unpack,
All
which
right.
is how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise story?
Ha, far from accidental, Nick. I hate to say this. I have been involved with franchise organizations and brands for, I don't even want to say, 50 years. I started my work life making Big Macs at McDonald's in Santa Barbara. And I kind of transitioned to the advertising business. I ran the Northern California co-ops for McDonald's, moved over to Burger King, ended up running that business at J. Walter Thompson. And my last real job in advertising was with Taco Bell. So I've spent a lot of time with franchisees. Believe me, I know them well. And at some point, I was introduced to Sola, and I thought about it for about 10 years, and finally the opportunity to join that organization was presented to me, and I took it.
All right, so a whole bunch that I want to unpack there. First, now that I love your story because now all the McDonald's stuff on my wall makes sense. Secondly, I would say similar to me. I've been in franchise marketing 20 years as of next year. I've never become a franchisee. I've worked with a ton of food brands. It would be very, very difficult for me to become a food franchisee.
So I could agree with that.
So you saw these brands intimately. You looked at franchising for a long time. You found out about Sola 10 years prior to doing it. What kept you on the sideline, and what eventually pushed you over?
Sorry. Somebody poked their head in my office. I should have locked the door. What pushed me over? I have been running my own advertising consultancy for close to 20 years. And advertising is a young man's business. I'm still young, but I'm not as young as I once was. And so I was looking for a next chapter. And so opportunistically, this franchise opportunity came along. And we'll probably get into the Sola model a little bit, but one of the things I like about it versus a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Taco Bell, a Supercuts is I'm not directly responsible for driving consumer traffic. And the challenge that comes along with multiple thousands of transactions at $3, $4, $5 a piece to run the business is more than I want to take on. So I am not in the retail marketing business. It's a different business model.
I mean, first of all, I love that answer, and I love it for two reasons. I mean, your career is built on the pressure of brands saying, "Go get us more customers," and at some point you say, "I'm kind of tired of that pressure. Let me look at a business where I don't have to feel the weight of the world on my back."
Right. That's absolutely true. As many conversations as I've had with big franchise organizations about, you need to spend more money because this is a market share battle and we got to go buy market share. There's no more visits. I need to go get 2% of visits from McDonald's, from Burger King, from Wendy's. That is a grind.
One thing with Sola, and I'm curious on your take on this. My viewpoint in marketing, PR, whether people buy into it or not, is that brands don't sell brands, people do. And so what I love about franchising is that when I can tell the human interest story of someone that was willing to risk it all to buy into business X, my belief is that someone will read that and say, "Ooh, I can do that too," or the persona is very similar to that. In the situation of a stylist, like, the reality is much of the same. Like, they're selling themselves, they're building up a network of clients, they're showing that they have a relationship with them. So out of curiosity, one, how does that statement connect with you, and how important is the people side to marketing that maybe brands sometimes miss out on?
Well, that's a tough question. It's two questions.
The
first one, the the very cool thing, and this is kind of the heart and soul of Sola, is you need to really care about supporting and mentoring entrepreneurs. So the beauty professionals, and I would expand it now to say beauty, health, and wellness professionals that we have in our places are amazing, hardworking, skilled, trained, spend a lot of money to get to where they are, and we need to care about their success, because if they're not successful, then our business isn't successful. So different franchisees have different skill sets. Mine's marketing, so I'm willing to mentor people on marketing all day long, if it helps them. And then on the brand side, that's really our promise at Sola. You could say we give you a studio and it's equipped and it's clean and the hot water works and the electricity works, but that's sort of the base level. There needs to be a promise to a beauty pro, and there needs to be a promise to their customers that when they come to Sola, they're going to have a good experience. And hopefully a slightly different and more valuable experience that they would get at a competitor or at a non-branded salon suites. I'm sorry. So brands are important, but people are really important, no question about it. And hairstylist is a hands-on people business. There's no two ways around it.
You've been doing this in the business world for so long, and I'm curious. You said it took 10 years for you to go from really impression to purchase. Two questions here too. Do you look back at that and say I should have done it sooner, or think of that journey, you look at it and say I needed that much time to be prepared to do this the right way?
Oh, I should have done this. I should have been the first on the train with Sola. And, the way I got into the business was a very good friend of mine who we worked together at J. Walter Thompson, an ad agency, left, went and opened 40 Supercuts, sold those, and got into Sola. And that's how I got introduced to it. And he's now retired and on the beach, and I'm still kind of starting out and building my so-called empire. So if I had not been loving the ad biz so much 10 years ago, I probably would have jumped on this train. But I felt like I was still, very successful in that chapter of my career.
I think Sola allows what my statement is to happen. But you take your friend's scenario. Like, the reality is, if you can look at franchising with a mindset that, one, the dollar is long term, so not what is my immediate return from the dollar, but two, almost with unemotional scale. That doesn't mean you're not emotional and excited for the people that you work with, but to get up to 40 units, you have to have almost an unemotional scale to get it going. And so you look at these elements, and you could cross-apply back to Sola, or you could look at the largest McDonald's operators. They build scale, right, which turns into wealth for their families. Like, when you look at the roadmap, did you think about that as you're looking at Sola? Did you look at that when you're looking at your friend's business? Like, is that how you're approaching the business, long-term dollar and scale?
I am learning. I bought two, and I learned this business, and I've been at it for 3.5, 4 years. And then I bought a third, and I built a fourth, and I'm building my fifth. And now I'm looking at it going, how do you get to 10? How do I get to 10 before I lose all my hair? And so it's that's kind of the business fun side of it, and you can separate that from the brand, really, and say, well, how do I finance this? What sort of organization do I need? What sort of culture do I want to create? All of those things. And I find that incredibly interesting. I've in my career, I've always been more or less of an employee / consultant, and now I'm an operator. And that's a different way of thinking. And I learn something new every day doing that. I don't think I'm ever going to get to 40, 50, 60 Solas. But if I could get to, 5, 7, 8, and they're profitable and they're full and my customers are happy, I'll feel pretty good about that.
Sometimes when you go from employee to business operator, you're able to reflect back on the things you did not like culturally. Are you still like going back to, I don't like that, so this is how I'm going to manage my team?
What team?
Or that?
I have a very small team, but still, it's important to me that they have an understanding of what the Sola promise is, and then what do they need to do every day to keep that promise, while thinking a little bit like an owner. So I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I wouldn't say that I am actively, I haven't formalized a culture, if you will. It's sort of just us together and how we talk about things and how I talk about things. And that was great and that wasn't so great, and all of that kind of stuff. I think at some point when you get some number of people, you need to say, here's what we're about. And some franchisees could be we are about saving money, or we are about growth, or we are about taking care of people. I don't exactly know where that goes with me right now. It'll be there somehow.
All right, another part of your backdrop, you could look at the awards on the wall all day long, and I'm curious if there's mental conflict on it, because when you become a franchisee, it's like you're buying a system and a process. Like don't discuss changes, but you come with such a wealth of experience and expertise. Do you look at the branding and the marketing in a critical eye, or do you have to say, hey, Greg, be quiet and just follow the system?
What are you, insane? Be quiet. And I don't think Sola wants me to be quiet. I think they want this system, and I think most do. I mean, I have a great story from McDonald's. The franchisee that I worked for in Santa Barbara invented the Egg McMuffin, and that spawned the breakfast business, and that spawned 20 to 22% of incremental sales in McDonald's. And then take that further, and every fast food chain, had to have a breakfast business, because it wasn't him actually, it was one of his manager's mothers, invented this Egg McMuffin thing and served it to us at a manager meeting. Boom, massive innovation. And I think Sola really values the innovation from the franchisees as well. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of knowledge across, all the levers that you can pull, from construction to marketing to management to what goes on in the beauty business. So it's a pretty active group in the innovation around the business.
I love that answer, because and I love what it represents with the business, because the reality is you have to have built up a little bit of wealth to get into a business like this. This is not a low cost chuck in a truck brand. And so when you're bringing in people that have built up wealth, they have to have some sort of brain power to bring to the table. And if a brand says, no, go sit back down, we got this, they miss out on almost free consulting, and consulting where the consultant's actually paying them to be a part of the business.
Right.
And so it's awesome to hear that they're willing to listen to the insights, because that's the type of brand that I would want to be involved with.
Right. Well, if you join Sola, you better be prepared to be active.
Where does the dream go from here? I mean, you talked about how do I go from 5 to 10, but
right.
Where does the dream go?
My feeling, I just want to become more and more comfortable with running this business. I think there are some significant it's not I think, the system thinks that there are some significant moves that can be made to improve the value of the Salon Suites business and certainly our brand. And so I would say that the next 5 years of this journey with Sola are going to have we're going to make some big moves to take advantage of some big opportunities. And so being part of that is going to be very exciting. So I want to feel comfortable day-to-day operations, not stressed out about rooftop unit number 4 in San Mateo malfunctioning, and more about a big picture. Where are we going to take this business so that there's more opportunity?
That was going to be my final question, but now I have another final question. I was talking to a friend, and I'll say a lot of my business conversations aren't operations or people. It revolves primarily around happiness. Like how do you find as much happiness as a business owner as possible? And obviously some of those things play into it. And what she was talking about is this gap. And the gap for an entrepreneur is you're like, oh, my dream is to make $1 million, and they make $1 million. You're like, well, now it's 10. And so the gap just continues to grow as you achieve success. And so what it prevents you from being able to do is pinch yourself and look at your career and say, all right, I'm going to keep hustling, but that was good. Do you feel like you get to pause and say, this has been awesome? Or does the gap continue to grow now that you're on this side of your...
That's interesting. Less than in the past, I had some very clear career goals many moons ago, and my wife and I own this business together. There's nobody else is involved. It's all our money. It's all our time. We do have a team, and they're great. But we have found ourselves from time to time saying, okay, what have we accomplished since we've gotten into Sola? We're not making a lot of money yet, but we went from 0 to 4 locations. It's a massive machine that we built in a relatively short period of time. I take a lot of pride in that accomplishment. What's the next one going to be? I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll step back and say, okay, this thing is paying for itself. We're paying the bills. I don't know. I don't know if that's the next one, but there will be times to kind of go, wow, we've done something here. And that notion of creating some sort of generational wealth, or at least, being able to participate in grandchildren's college educations and things like that is sort of part of it as well.
That's awesome. Well, Greg, I'm grateful for the conversation. Obviously, just resume period. I was excited about this conversation, but the meat of it was great, and I'm grateful that you gave me some of your time.
My pleasure, Nick. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Of course. For Greg, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z.